Today, I want to share with you something very close to my heart, the mistakes that taught me success. We often celebrate achievements and victories, but the truth is, our failures shape us more than our successes ever will. When I was young, I failed many times, failed exams, failed job interviews, even failed in business ideas that I thought would change the world. And each time, it hurt. Each time, I questioned myself. But over time, I realized mistakes are not obstacles. They are the stepping stones to success. Failure is something everyone fears. From the moment we start dreaming, failure lurks quietly in the background, whispering doubts, testing our courage, and sometimes making us feel unworthy. But here is the truth that many people never realize: failure is not your enemy. In fact, failure is your most honest teacher, the guide who will show you where your strengths are weak, where your understanding is limited, and where your character can grow. When I look back at my own journey, I see that almost every meaningful success I have had was born out of repeated mistakes. And the deeper the failure, the more profound the lesson. When you fail, you are forced to reflect. You have to look at what went wrong without excuses, without blaming others, and without hiding from the truth. This reflection is uncomfortable. Most people avoid it, but this discomfort is exactly where growth happens. Think about it. If you always succeed, if every plan works perfectly, what have you really learned? Nothing. You have learned only that things are easy when conditions are perfect. But life is rarely perfect, and success built on perfection is fragile and temporary. Failure, however, challenges you to adapt, to rethink, and to find solutions that you never imagined before. It makes your mind stronger and your judgment sharper. One of the most important lessons that failure teaches is humility. When you fail, you realize that you are not invincible, that knowledge alone is not enough, and that preparation sometimes meets unpredictable circumstances. Humility allows you to listen, to pay attention to feedback, and to seek advice from people who have seen more than you. Without failure, you might become arrogant, thinking that everything will go your way. Arrogance closes doors, but humility opens them, and the first step toward true mastery in anything is understanding that you do not know everything. Failure also teaches resilience. When you fail once, it is painful. When you fail twice, it is humiliating. When you fail several times, it can feel impossible to continue. But those who embrace failure learn the secret of resilience, that each setback is temporary, that each mistake carries a lesson, and that persistence is built only through repeated experience of falling and rising again. Resilience is not something you can read about or acquire from theory. It is forged in the heat of disappointment, nurtured in the struggle to get up when the world seems to be saying no. Every mistake becomes a small weight that strengthens your ability to endure greater challenges in the future. Another subtle yet powerful lesson of failure is creativity. When things go wrong, the old solutions stop working. You are forced to think differently, to find new paths, to experiment, and sometimes to invent approaches that would never occur to you in a world without mistakes. Failure forces your mind to explore corners it would otherwise avoid. It removes complacency and encourages innovation. Many breakthroughs, many new ways of seeing a problem, emerge only because someone was willing to make mistakes and to learn from them rather than being afraid of them. Failure also teaches patience and timing. Sometimes we fail simply because we rushed, because we wanted quick results, or because we tried to follow a path before the conditions were right. Through failure, we learn that success cannot be forced and that timing matters. Patience, combined with learning, allows us to return to our goals with more preparation, better understanding, and wiser judgment. We begin to see that a single failure is never the end, but often a necessary pause that allows us to grow into the next level of achievement. Most importantly, failure teaches perspective. When you fail, you start to understand what really matters. You learn that external validation is fleeting, that mistakes do not define your worth, and that the value of an experience is in the lessons it provides, not just the outcome it produces. You start to see life not as a straight path where success is guaranteed, but as a journey of learning, testing, and improving. Every failed attempt is a marker showing that you are moving, that you are trying, and that you are human, which is where true growth begins. Talent is often celebrated in society as the golden key to success. We hear stories of prodigies, geniuses, and naturally gifted individuals, and we start to believe that if we are not born with extraordinary abilities, we are already behind. But the truth I have learned through experience is that talent alone is never enough. Talent is a starting point, not a guarantee. Persistence, the willingness to keep moving forward despite obstacles, disappointments, and repeated failures is what separates those who achieve greatness from those who fade into mediocrity. When we talk about persistence, we are talking about a mindset, a commitment to try again and again, even when every instinct in your body tells you to stop. Talent may give you a head start, but without persistence, it quickly becomes irrelevant. I have seen people with immense natural abilities fail because they gave up too soon, because they were unwilling to endure the long, difficult journey toward mastery. On the other hand, I have seen ordinary people achieve extraordinary results simply because they refused to quit, simply because they kept moving forward when others would have turned back. Persistence transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes, and it teaches lessons that talent alone cannot. Persistence is not easy. It requires courage to face repeated setbacks and to keep trying when success seems distant or impossible. Every time you continue despite failure, you are telling the world, and more importantly, yourself, that you are capable of growth, capable of learning, and capable of reaching beyond your current limits. It is in the repeated effort, the day after day struggle, that skills are honed, understanding deepens, and character is built. Talent might help you perform well on the first try, but persistence ensures that you improve steadily, becoming stronger, wiser, and more adaptable with each attempt. One of the most important aspects of persistence is learning from each attempt. Continuing blindly is not enough. You must persist with awareness. Every mistake is an opportunity to refine your approach, to understand what works, and to discard what does not. This combination of perseverance and reflection accelerates growth far beyond what raw talent can achieve. A talented person may succeed once or twice by chance, but persistent effort transforms chance into consistent achievement. It turns small successes into large ones over time, and it makes you resilient against the inevitable failures that accompany any worthwhile endeavor. Persistence also teaches patience and endurance. Success rarely comes overnight, and talent alone cannot create the deep reserves of patience required to face long-term challenges. Those who persist understand that progress is often invisible in the moment, that the seeds of effort take time to grow, and that each small step is part of a larger journey. Talent may allow someone to shine temporarily, but persistence ensures a steady climb, a slow and deliberate movement toward mastery and accomplishment. Those who persist are not chasing immediate recognition, they are building something that lasts. Another key lesson of persistence is self-belief. In moments of struggle, when it seems that no amount of effort will produce results, persistent individuals trust their capacity to learn and adapt. They continue because they believe that every challenge carries a lesson, every failure is temporary, and every effort moves them closer to their goal. Talent can give confidence, but true self-belief comes from demonstrating to yourself through repeated effort that you can overcome obstacles and improve with time. This inner trust is the foundation of courage, creativity, and the willingness to take risks, all of which are essential for long-term success. Persistence also teaches humility. While talent can make you feel invincible, repeated effort reminds you that you are always learning, always growing, and always facing challenges. It forces you to acknowledge that no matter how gifted you are, the journey toward meaningful success is long, difficult, and full of lessons that only experience can teach. Those who persist understand that mastery is not about innate ability, but about effort, learning, and the refusal to quit in the face of adversity. Over time, persistence shapes not just results, but character, creating a person who is disciplined, adaptable, and prepared to face challenges far beyond what talent alone could handle. Persistence transforms life because it allows ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. It teaches resilience, patience, and humility, and it builds the kind of confidence that talent alone cannot create, showing that those who continue despite difficulties will often surpass those who started with far greater natural abilities, but stopped too soon. Most people underestimate the power of listening. We live in a world where speaking is often valued more than understanding, where expressing our opinions seems more important than learning from others. But listening, truly listening, is one of the most powerful tools for growth, success, and leadership. I have learned over and over again that mistakes often happen because we fail to listen. To our colleagues, to our customers, to the people around us, and sometimes even to our own instincts. Listening is not passive. It requires attention, humility, and patience. It is an active choice to learn, to absorb, and to understand, even when it challenges your assumptions or makes you uncomfortable. When you listen, you gain knowledge that cannot be learned from books or lectures. You hear perspectives you never considered, solutions you never imagined, and warnings you might have ignored. if you only relied on your own thinking. I remember many times when I thought I had the right answer, when I believed my ideas were perfect, only to discover later that failure could have been avoided if I had listened more carefully. Listening allows you to see beyond your own limited viewpoint, to anticipate problems before they arise, and to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. Listening also teaches humility. When you take the time to hear others, you admit that you do not have all the answers. This can be difficult for people who are ambitious or proud because it feels like a weakness. But the truth is that humility is the foundation of growth. No one succeeds entirely alone. Every achievement is built on advice, support, and knowledge gained from others. By listening, you honor the experiences and insights of those around you, and you open yourself to opportunities that you might otherwise miss. Another lesson that listening teaches is empathy. When you truly listen, you are not just gathering information, you are understanding people. You begin to see the world through their eyes, to understand their fears, hopes, and motivations. This understanding allows you to make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and lead with compassion. Mistakes often occur when we ignore the human side of situations, when we assume we know what others need or how they feel. Listening bridges that gap and allows collaboration to flourish, turning potential failures into opportunities for growth. Listening also develops patience and emotional intelligence. When you listen, you learn to pause, to resist the urge to speak immediately, and to consider the value of what is being shared. This pause allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Many failures happen because people act too quickly, based on assumptions rather than understanding. Listening slows down your decision, making just enough to reduce mistakes, while also cultivating self-awareness, emotional control, and better judgment. Persistence in listening is another overlooked aspect. Sometimes the person speaking may not express themselves clearly, or the advice may be difficult to understand at first. It requires effort to really hear, to read between the lines, and to grasp the deeper meaning. This effort pays off because it equips you with knowledge that is not obvious, insights that are subtle, and wisdom that only comes through careful attention. By consistently listening in every situation, you accumulate a wealth of understanding that talent or instinct alone cannot provide. Listening also strengthens your network and builds trust. People notice when you genuinely hear them, when you value their input instead of dismissing it. This trust creates loyalty, collaboration, and mutual respect. Leaders who fail often ignore this principle, assuming that direction comes from authority alone. Those who listen, however, gain insights, feedback, and ideas that others are often too timid to share, allowing them to avoid mistakes and innovate more effectively. Perhaps most importantly, listening teaches the art of learning from failure. Every mistake carries a lesson, and listening is the key to unlocking that lesson. When you fail, those around you often have perspectives you cannot see on your own. By listening, you gain the clarity to understand what went wrong, why it happened, and how to prevent it in the future. The world is full of people willing to share wisdom, but few take the time to truly hear it, and those who do have a distinct advantage over those who rely solely on their own voice. Risk is often misunderstood. Many people think of risk as something to avoid, a dangerous path that leads only to failure and disappointment. Others see risk as a thrilling leap into the unknown, a chance to win big without much thought for what could go wrong. The truth is that risk is neither inherently good nor bad. It is simply a part of life, a necessary element of growth, innovation, and achievement. Learning to embrace risk while managing it intelligently is one of the most important skills you can develop, and it is something I have learned through countless experiences of both success and failure. When we talk about risk, we are really talking about opportunity. Every time you step into the unknown, you expose yourself to possibilities that would not exist if you remained in your comfort zone. Yet risk is not about recklessness. It is not about jumping without preparation or ignoring consequences. Embracing risk means being willing to face uncertainty, to take chances that may feel uncomfortable, and to move forward despite fear. At the same time, managing risk requires careful thought, planning, and an understanding of what is at stake. Those who succeed are not fearless. They are thoughtful risk takers who understand how to balance courage with strategy. The first lesson in embracing risk is that fear is natural but should not control your decisions. Fear often convinces people to stay small, to avoid trying, and to settle for mediocrity. But if you allow fear to dominate your choices, you will miss opportunities that could have changed your life. Taking a risk means acknowledging fear, feeling it, and then moving forward anyway. It is the courage to act in spite of uncertainty that separates those who achieve extraordinary results from those who only dream about them. Risk becomes manageable when you accept fear as part of the process and use it to sharpen your focus rather than paralyze your efforts. Another important aspect of risk is preparation. Smart risk takers do not rely solely on luck. They gather information, evaluate possibilities, and anticipate potential challenges. Every risk carries a degree of uncertainty, but by preparing thoroughly, you reduce that uncertainty and increase your chances of success. Preparation allows you to experiment, make mistakes safely, and adjust your strategy without catastrophic consequences. Even when things do not go as planned, careful preparation ensures that the failure becomes a lesson rather than a disaster. Risk also teaches resilience. When you take a calculated risk, you open yourself to the possibility of failure. Not every risk will pay off, and not every plan will succeed. But those who embrace risk repeatedly learn to recover quickly, to analyze mistakes, and to improve their future decisions. Resilience grows because you understand that setbacks are not permanent and that each experience strengthens your ability to handle the next challenge. Those who avoid risk entirely never face these tests of character and often miss the growth that comes from navigating uncertainty successfully. Another lesson of risk is the importance of timing. Even a brilliant idea can fail if it is introduced at the wrong moment, just as a modest opportunity can flourish if acted upon at the right time. Understanding timing comes from observation, learning from others, and sometimes from trial and error. Risk management involves not only evaluating the potential rewards and consequences, but also understanding the environment in which you act. Patience, insight, and timing often make the difference between a risk that succeeds and one that fails, and those who master these elements are able to take bolder chances with confidence. Risk-taking also fosters innovation. When you step outside your comfort zone, you are forced to think differently, to explore solutions you might not have considered, and to challenge the status quo. Many of the greatest achievements in business, science, and life itself come from people willing to take risks others avoided. Risk encourages creativity because it removes the safety net of the familiar and pushes you to find new paths to success. Even when a risk fails, the lessons learned often lead to breakthroughs that would not have occurred in a safer, more predictable environment. Finally, risk teaches perspective. It reminds you that failure is not fatal and that success is not guaranteed. By embracing risk with careful management, you develop confidence, judgment, and the ability to weigh potential rewards against potential consequences. You learn that calculated risk is a tool, not a gamble, and that the greatest opportunities often lie just beyond the edge of comfort. Those who master risk understand that it is not about avoiding mistakes, but about making choices that allow growth, learning, and progress even when uncertainty looms large. One of the biggest lessons in life and business is understanding the company you keep. The people around you shape your mindset, your habits, and ultimately your results. I have learned that surrounding yourself with people who challenge you, people who push you to think differently, question your assumptions, and demand more from you, is far more valuable than being surrounded by those who simply agree or flatter you. When everyone around you nods and says yes, it feels comfortable, but comfort does not lead to growth. Growth comes from challenge, from tension, and from learning how to rise to the expectations of those who hold you accountable. Being challenged is never easy. It can be uncomfortable, frustrating, and even humbling. A person who questions your ideas forces you to defend your reasoning, to analyze your logic, and sometimes to admit that you were wrong. This process can feel like confrontation, but it is also one of the most powerful tools for improvement. Without challenge, mistakes go unnoticed, bad habits persist, and growth stalls. Those who achieve extraordinary results often do so not because they are the smartest in the room, but because they are surrounded by people who refuse to let them settle for mediocrity, who push them to aim higher, and who help them see blind spots that they would have ignored on their own. The first lesson from being around challenging people is humility. When you are constantly tested, you realize that you do not have all the answers. You understand that knowledge is not fixed, that learning never stops, and that progress requires collaboration. Humility allows you to listen, to absorb new ideas, and to improve continuously. It also prevents arrogance, which is one of the fastest ways to fail. The smartest, most talented person in a room can become the weakest if they refuse to learn from others. Challenge reminds you that even success is temporary unless you keep growing, keep learning, and keep accepting feedback. Being challenged also strengthens resilience. People who push you force you to face obstacles, accept criticism, and endure discomfort. Each confrontation, each differing opinion is an opportunity to build mental toughness. You learn that failure is not a defeat, but a stepping stone, and that criticism is not a personal attack, but a tool for growth. Resilience grows because you realize that you can handle more than you thought, that you can rise above tension, and that your limits are often far beyond what you imagine. Surrounding yourself with challenging people trains your mind and your character in ways that comfort never could. Another important aspect is creativity. When someone challenges your thinking, it forces you to approach problems differently. You are no longer confined to a single perspective. You are compelled to explore new strategies, experiment with solutions, and expand your vision. Innovation rarely comes from agreement. It comes from friction, discussion, and the clash of ideas. People who challenge you inspire new ways of thinking, spark insights that you might never have reached on your own, and encourage you to embrace possibilities beyond your initial assumptions. Challenging people also provide accountability. They notice when you slack off, when you take shortcuts, or when you settle for less than your potential. This accountability is invaluable because it keeps you aligned with your goals and reminds you that success is not just about talent or effort, but about discipline and consistency. When you surround yourself with people who expect more from you than you expect from yourself, you are forced to rise, to meet those expectations, and to achieve results that might have seemed impossible alone. Surrounding yourself with challenging people also teaches perspective. You learn to see situations from multiple angles, to weigh criticism without taking it personally, and to balance confidence with openness. You begin to understand that disagreement is not an enemy, but a mirror reflecting areas where you can grow. Those who avoid challenge often miss this opportunity and remain stagnant, while those who embrace it expand their understanding, improve their skills, and build stronger teams and relationships over time. Finally, challenging people inspire ambition. Being around individuals who push you encourages you to aim higher than you thought possible, to dream bigger, and to refuse the temptation of comfort. They remind you that growth is a continuous journey, that excellence is not achieved alone, and that true success is measured not just by what you accomplish, but by how much you stretch yourself in the process. The people you surround yourself with define the level of success you can achieve, because they set the standard for what is possible, for what is acceptable, and for what you should strive to become. Dreams are what give life meaning, what push us to wake up each morning and strive for something greater than ourselves. Yet dreaming is not easy, especially when failure enters the picture. Failure has a way of shaking confidence, testing patience, and making us question whether our goals are worth pursuing. But the most important lesson I have learned is that dreams must continue even in the face of failure, because it is persistence in dreaming that eventually turns imagination into reality. The world is full of people who gave up too soon, who let setbacks define their worth, or who stopped believing in possibilities simply because the journey was hard. Keeping your dreams alive requires courage, vision, and a refusal to let temporary defeat determine your future. When you dream, you are embracing hope. You are envisioning a future that does not yet exist, a future that will only be created through effort, risk, and resilience. Failure is inevitable along this path because dreams challenge the status quo, push boundaries, and ask for more than what is comfortable or familiar. Those who succeed understand that failure is not the opposite of dreaming, it is part of the process. Each failure provides clarity, each setback teaches lessons, and each disappointment tests your commitment. The act of continuing to dream despite failure demonstrates a deeper understanding that the value of a dream lies not only in achieving it, but in the growth, learning, and courage developed along the way. One of the most important lessons in continuing to dream is resilience. Dreams are fragile when we first conceive them. They are ideas that exist only in our minds until we take action. Action inevitably involves risk, mistakes, and setbacks. Each time you fail, you are forced to reassess, to adjust your approach, and to refine your vision. This process builds strength, perseverance, and the ability to endure difficulties that would have stopped someone who gave up after the first obstacle. The dream does not disappear because the journey is hard, it grows stronger because your willingness to pursue it deepens with every challenge you face. Keeping your dreams alive also teaches creativity and adaptability. Failure exposes limitations in your strategy, resources, or understanding and forces you to explore new paths. Sometimes the original plan does not work, but the dream itself is flexible enough to allow reinvention. Those who stop dreaming do so because they mistake failure for finality. Those who persist see failure as feedback. They experiment, pivot, and innovate, often discovering solutions and opportunities they would never have encountered if everything had gone smoothly. Dreaming through failure develops a mind that is not rigid, but resilient, imaginative, and capable of overcoming obstacles in ways that others cannot imagine. Another critical aspect of dreaming in the face of failure is self-belief. Maintaining a vision when the world around you doubts or criticizes requires confidence, not in perfection, but in your ability to learn, grow, and find a way forward. Belief in your dream sustains motivation during difficult times, fuels the effort needed to keep going, and prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent defeat. Those who achieve extraordinary outcomes are not always the most talented or the most fortunate. They are often the ones who refuse to abandon their vision when the odds seemed impossible, who trusted in their capacity to improve and to overcome. Dreams also inspire connection. When you continue to pursue a vision despite failure, you attract others who share your values, believe in your potential, and are willing to help you reach your goals. Communities, teams, mentors, and allies often emerge because your commitment signals determination and authenticity. Giving up on a dream can close these doors, but persistence opens them, creating networks of support, insight, and opportunity that would not exist otherwise. The act of dreaming itself becomes contagious, inspiring those around you and creating momentum that strengthens your ability to succeed. Finally, continuing to dream despite failure teaches perspective. You begin to understand that setbacks are temporary, that mistakes are part of learning, and that the value of your dream is measured not only by its final achievement, but by the courage, growth, and resilience developed along the way. Dreams are not simply destinations. They are the journeys that shape who you are, how you think, and how you respond to life's challenges. The people who succeed in the long term are not those who avoid failure, but those who embrace it, keep dreaming, and use each experience as a stepping stone towards something greater.